like any other religion, not obligated to open her records.
Welcome to the show. Thank you all for coming. It's so great to see everybody today. Before we begin tonight's episode, we just have a word from our sponsor. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Shunglasses for all your shunning needs.
I never go anywhere without my sunglasses.
Yes, thank you, Shunglasses. A friend of mine had posted a recently leaked video from JW.org. It was about how to train their members regarding the media. It's actually not a new video, it's from 1999. But when I watched it, I noticed that there were a lot of very interesting tidbits that I wanted to share with you. One thing that I learned is that the organization has a love-hate relationship with the media. They love it when the media says things about them that's positive, things like how great their suits are and how nice and clean they are. But when anything negative is said, I notice that suddenly the media is controlled by Satan. Like here from this November 15th, 2008 Watchtower. So if Satan truly is controlling the media, it seems to only be when it's not favorable to the organization. Because when it is favorable, they like to credit Jehovah for blessing them and giving a good witness. The media has a lot of power, which creates a kind of situation for the organization, because they like to be the only one who gets to control their members. Now they even have their own broadcasting. And like some crazy jealous boyfriend, if they had it their way, you would only ever watch them and nothing else. Thankfully, Jehovah's Witnesses are still allowed to watch television, though they are severely warned about the outside media.
The media out there, with all its power and its might, it presents human nature in 3Ds. 3Ds. Debauchery of every kind, deception of every kind, and demonism of every kind. And we need to be aware of that.
Consider this, brothers. We have documented that the majority of negative stories about Jehovah's Witnesses publicize not what we believe, but distortions or false accusations.
They believe that Satan is controlling the media, but that doesn't stop them from cozying up to Satan at every opportunity to further their cause. Here are some clips to show you what I mean, and they're taken from this training video.
That's why you want to be positive, relaxed, and be yourself. You want the reporter to like you, if at all possible. Still, even when the reporter seems friendly, he is not necessarily your friend, so don't let your guard down. But it's harder to be critical of someone if you know the person, if the reporter meets you face to face. Here's a little about yourself and your family. Human nature is he will be more sympathetic, so urge him to come and talk to you in person. Invite them to have a meal with the Bethel family.
Here's a suggestion that you can put to use during the interview. If it seems fitting, occasionally use the reporter's name in answering a question. If it's appropriate in your area, use their first name. That helps create a more friendly connection between you and the reporter.
Were you aware that there were Bethelites who were specifically assigned to have lunch with the media, to wine and dine them, and to try to do this with the idea of getting favorable stories out of them? I mean, I know every large corporation has a public relations department, and I'm sure that they all do this, but I guess for some reason I didn't see JW.org as manipulating the media in this way. And because everything that they did, whenever it was favorable, they always attributed it to Jehovah. I didn't realize that they had such a strong hand in trying to have things told their way. You're looking at a couple of pages from their 1999 yearbook, which is actually the same year that this training video was done. Notice there on the first page that's highlighted, it talks about how they produced this 32-page brochure entitled Your Neighbors Jehovah's Witnesses, Who Are They? And this was specifically for the media. And then on page 143 there, under the subheading, Providing the Media with Factual Information, because only they have factual information about themselves, no doubt. It talked about here, it says there individuals with the potential for doing effective public relations work were located and seminars were held to train them. It said that the country was divided into 22 suitable regions, kind of like territory cards that we're all familiar with. And it says that by 1998, there were hundreds of trained information service workers caring for needs in these areas. They gave particular attention to personal contact with editors and journalists.
Your media contact list is like a territory that must be worked regularly. Your key reporters are like return visits. The more time and attention you give them, the more likely they will produce good results. More information on how you can be proactive in contacting the media is available in the Public Affairs Manual. You could also designate media representatives. These individuals could include both brothers and sisters.
Yet from the Circuit Overseer Guidelines, it says here, while a sister may be a good interpreter, it is not appropriate to use a sister as an interpreter for judicial cases. Just thought I'd point that out. The organization is super concerned with looking good at all times. They want to control everything that is said about them.
Did the information come from apostates, from encyclopedias or other reference books that have inaccurate information about Jehovah's Witnesses?
Right, because they're always truthful in everything they ever say or publish.
Your job would be to provide her with accurate information about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Live interviews are like a double-edged sword. They can't edit you, so that's good. But on the other side, you can't control what's being asked.
Here's an example they showed of an unpracticed interview. Everything the brother says there is exactly how witnesses feel, but they wouldn't want potentially interested ones to know that they feel this way.
It's interesting. Mr. Palacia, thank you for meeting with us today. It wasn't easy getting an interview. You must be a very busy man.
We are. I just got back from Italy, France, Germany. I had to take care of some problems over there.
Oh, you must be very important to this operation.
Well, actually, we've been talking about this crazy idea. Some people think that we're a cult.
Well, why would anyone say that?
Oh, you know, we don't take blood. We break up families. We disfellowship. All this type of nonsense.
That's interesting. I've never heard that phrase, disfellowship, before. Well, looks like we're ready to start. You ready, Mr. Palacia?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Palacia, even as we speak, 18-year-old Joey Jones lies in a hospital bed hovering on the brink of death. His parents, who are Jehovah's Witnesses, refuse to authorize a life-saving blood transfusion. My question is simple. Why won't the Joneses help their son? And is it true that your church will not allow blood transfusions even if it means someone's life?
If this is being covered by the media, then it is not a false assumption, but a very dire situation.
It's true. We don't take blood transfusions.
That means you would allow your son to die for lack of blood? Isn't that criminal? Isn't that murder?
Again, it's not a false statement. There's a very good chance that the child will die if a blood transfusion is refused.
No, not at all. We don't murder. We just obey God's law, which says we shouldn't take blood. And if as a result we die, well, there's the hope of the resurrection.
The Bible never discusses blood in medicine. Nowhere does it say that we shouldn't take blood medicinally.
So you mean to tell me, Mr. Palacia, you don't even care if this boy dies. He'll just go to heaven.
You're twisting my words. I didn't say that.
I can't say that they want them to die, but martyrs don't hurt causes. In a cult, it makes their beliefs more real because members have made genuine sacrifices.
The bottom line is, Mr. Palacia, that you will let your children die for lack of blood. Now let's talk about the other victims in this, the physicians. Jehovah's Witnesses won't accept modern medicine. How can you put a doctor in the position of withholding life-saving medical treatment? Is it morally right to place that kind of burden on the conscience of a doctor who's been trained to save lives?
Well, it's really the doctor's problem, isn't it? And worldly doctors just do not understand our beliefs. We do not give blood.
It's true, they don't give blood, but they will take blood fractions, and all the while condemning the ones who donated the blood.
And besides, you could get hepatitis, AIDS, other diseases.
Yes, what about that? Isn't it true that your church exaggerates the risks of blood in order to frighten your members?
No, but I'm sure the risks are very high. Well, I don't have the exact...
You don't know the answer,
Well,
do
no,
you, Mr. Palacia?
I don't have the exact
Isn't it
statistics.
that kind of blind faith that has led thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses to their grave because of your church's misguided policy on blood? Answer the question, Mr. Palacia.
This is what the organization is terrified of: looking bad, losing control, and losing the argument.
That's totally false. I know where you got those ideas from those apostates. They're just disgruntled and upset because they're disfellowshipped, and they're spreading all these type of lies, and you are believing it.
Sadly, there was nothing false about what she'd said. The fact is, people die from refusing blood. It happens all the time, and the organization doesn't really seem to care.
That's interesting, Mr. Palacia. That's the second time you've used that phrase, disfellowship. Why don't we talk a little bit about disfellowshipping now?
So that was how not to do an interview. That was a perfect example of why they don't like to give live interviews, especially when it's involving anything controversial in any way. They prefer to give written statements. Like, did you hear the one about how they abhor child abuse? Yes, I've heard that one too. Ad nauseum.
Either way, in person or on the phone, do record the conversation. You might say, for everyone's benefit, I'd like to record our conversation. The tape should already be recording. If he can't because of a tight deadline, be prepared to record the phone conversation. Let him know you're doing so for your protection and his. He may not like it, but the fact of the matter is, it will force him to be more careful and to quote you more accurately.
It's interesting that they encourage you to record the conversations, but don't allow it during judicial committees, as we see here from the Elder's Secret Policy Book. So before your judicial committee begins, remember to word it the way he said in the video. For everyone's benefit, I'd like to record our conversation. They won't like it, but it will force them to be more careful and to quote you more accurately. The tape should already be recording.
Also realize that either before or after the more formal portion of your interview, the photographer will still be recording, videotaping from different angles, or they will ask for a tour. So don't have anything that is private in nature or confidential letters from another branch in the room that you don't want them to see on camera. And remember, you're still being interviewed, just from a different angle or in a different location, perhaps as you walk about the Bethel home.
However, there is a scriptural principle that applies here and will help you answer reporters' questions. It's found in Proverbs 10:19. In the abundance of words, there does not fail to be transgression, but the one keeping his lips in check is acting discreetly. So, when it comes to answering questions, less is more. Don't give long, rambling answers. Do keep your answers brief and to the point. Usually, just a few sentences will suffice. Once you've answered the question and corrected the misinformation, don't offer more than you need to. Let the reporter come up with the next question. Or if the issue in your area seems to be that people believe we are a cult or just a local or American sect, a theme might be our peaceful worldwide brotherhood. You could stress how millions of people share a worldwide brotherhood, regardless of national boundaries or race. how we teach people to live peaceably with their neighbors, how we preach a message of hope, not despair.
Thank you, Mr. Comer, for taking the time out to speak with me. I know you're a very busy man.
It's our pleasure to be able to sit down and talk with you.
Mr. Comer, our station just learned about a sad situation. It involves the son of Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Apparently, the boy is gravely ill, but yet the parents are refusing a blood transfusion because they say their faith won't allow it. Can you comment on that, please?
Are they Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yes, they are.
I'm not familiar with the case of the family. I would agree.
Why isn't he familiar with the case? I'm assuming it's all over the media, which is why he's being interviewed. Unless the organization deliberately sends those who know nothing as a sort of theocratic warfare, so they can play dumb and not be able to answer the questions.
I agree with you, though, that anytime anyone goes into the hospital of any faith, it's a sad situation. That's scary.
So why won't the church allow them to have blood transfusion? It could save this boy's life.
Well, first of all, the church, as you put it, has no say, no decision in that at all. We don't force our members to make any decision in terms of medical care. It's a right to choice for that family, and that's that family alone decision to make in terms of whatever medical care they're going to choose.
They don't force you to refuse blood, but you will be punished if you decide to take a blood transfusion. And as soon as the elders find out that a member is in the hospital needing blood, they will send their hospital liaison committee members to watch you like a hawk to ensure that you comply.
But I understand that the parents are saying that the Bible says that they cannot accept a blood transfusion. Now, with all due respect, the Bible is quite old and outdated, and it seems the parents are applying something from ancient history, it seems, and they're using it for modern medicine. Do your members not accept modern medicine? Or?
Well, you've said a couple of things, a number of things, and let me try and address them one at a time. First, you said that the Bible is outdated, and as you said respectfully, we would disagree with you. We think the Bible is not outdated, and we do believe the Bible is inspired of God. And the Bible, from Genesis throughout the Hebrew, Aramaic scriptures on into the Christian Greek scriptures, do tell us to abstain from blood, and we as Christians do believe that.
But modern medicine dictates that
right,
a blood transfusion will save this boy's life.
Okay, you said that we don't accept modern medicine, and that's really a fallacy. Sometimes we get confused with other religions. We do accept modern medicine. We embrace modern medicine with our whole heart. We believe in the very best medical care. We do go to doctors. We give our families, our children, the very best medical care that we can possibly get, with one exception, and that's blood. And I think you'll find that there are many people today that recognize as well.
But are you tying the hands of the doctor, though? The doctor wants to administer blood in this case.
The doctor, we would hope, would be exploring also medical options. And I stress medical because we want the best medical care, and there are medical alternatives to blood. Many people realize the dangers and risks of blood, and there are alternatives available.
The bottom line is that there is no true substitute for blood. There are some alternatives that can be used, but in many cases, only blood will work.
Okay, then. Are you saying that children who refuse blood transfusion, there has not been one incident where a child has died because he had said no, perhaps because the parents say no to blood?
I don't know. I don't know of any.
Wow, that's a blatant lie.
I will tell you this, that anytime anyone goes in for surgery, regardless of their religion, we all sign the form that says we're releasing the hospital and the doctor from responsibility because of the seriousness of going into the hospital for a surgery for anyone. There are no guarantees, but Jehovah's Witness or not, when we go in for surgery.
It's true that there are no guarantees, but refusing blood is almost a death sentence. Your chances of surviving decrease dramatically.
But you're not accepting blood.
But we are accepting...
Blood is an acceptable form of medical care.
We are accepting all forms of medical care other than blood. And as far as what the Jones family is going to accept, that is up for the Jones family. You'll have to talk to them. I don't know what else to tell you about the Jones family.
Thank you, Mr. Comer.
Thank you.
Yes, we will be speaking to the Jones family, as long as the hospital liaison committee doesn't try to interfere. You know, I'd really love to see hospitals kick those thugs right out. They act like they're on your side, but they're a very passive-aggressive committee who claims to be there to help you and to offer you support. But really, what they are there to do is ensure that you comply, that you follow current Watchtower policy. And if you don't, you will be punished. And if you die, so be it. They get on with their families and get on with their lives.
Now let's talk about an ambush interview, what reporters call a spontaneous interview. This is when you're walking to or from your car or a building and suddenly a television reporter and photographer surprise you and start asking you questions with a microphone shoved in your face and the camera is recording. That doesn't look like much fun, does it? But fortunately, ambush interviews are rare and can usually be prevented by your being cooperative to the extent you can with the media, even if that only means providing a written statement. Actually, this situation has the potential to make you look more reasonable and fair than the reporter. Here's how. Keep walking comfortably. Instead of saying no comment, say, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. Give me a call and we'll set up an appointment. If you've never been asked for an interview, you might say, frankly, I'm surprised you're here ambushing me like this. May I ask you why you didn't just call and ask for an interview?
Mr. Palacia, I'm from TV News. We're following on a story that one of your members has kidnapped a child. Is that true?
I'll be glad to discuss this subject with you. If you can call my office and we can make an appointment, I'll be happy to give you the facts on the case. Okay? Please call me.
In an ambush interview, the reporter is probably hoping to show themselves asking a difficult question and an angry, guilty-looking subject trying to be evasive. You can take that moment away from the reporter by basically asking why they've resorted to such tactics when you've either tried to answer their questions previously or was never given a chance to. And because it's those first seconds that are important to the reporter doing an ambush interview, that's when you want to ask your questions. Put them on the defensive, all the while walking to your office or your car.
What they kind of mentioned in that video is that ambush interviews can be avoided when you give interviews. But the fact of the matter is that JW.org simply cannot defend their horrible policies. When it comes to things like shunning and blood transfusions and their horrible record when it comes to child abuse and the cover-ups that have happened that they've done, how do you defend this? This is why they avoid interviews on these topics like the plague. And they will rarely ever give interviews, as we see highlighted in this next clip.
Anderson is now an outspoken critic of the organization and last month filed a complaint with the Pennsylvania Attorney General claiming Jehovah's Witnesses have failed to report 775 cases of child sex abuse from 1997 to 2001. And use donation money to settle child sex abuse cases out of court. Anderson asked prosecutors to commence wrongdoing investigations, initiate civil proceedings against Watchtower, issue subpoenas for documents, and hold governing members accountable. I have repeatedly asked Watchtower for a response to these claims, sending emails to the governing body, visiting individual congregations.
I hear it ringing.
I'm a reporter at WGAL.
And calling elders.
I was hoping that we could talk about...
No one has agreed to an interview, but Watchtower did send me this letter posted on its website in May. It says Jehovah's Witnesses abhor child abuse and view it as a crime. In Pennsylvania, clergy are mandated reporters of child abuse.
The only way it seems to get a response from the organization is to ambush them. But even then, they don't answer the questions, and they come across as arrogant and haughty and defensive douchebags. You'll see here from the next two interviews, one with my favorite, Ted Jarris, and my other favorite, Toni Morris.
We'd been told we'd find a member of the governing body here. Ted Jarris is one of the men responsible for the church's child protection policy. For more than 2 months, we've been asking them for an interview. We want answers to some simple questions. Why do they keep their database of suspected paedophiles secret? Why don't they report all allegations of abuse to the police? Why do they send children back to the arms of their abusers? They refused to talk to us, but here at last we had our chance.
Tell me about the database. How do you justify keeping a list of people, men in some cases, who have confessed to paedophilia, but you have not reported them to the authority? What justification is there for you to keep that list?
You have a privacy law. You have a directive from the European Union. You observe that, don't you?
So when allegations of abuse are made, it's all right to keep them private?
I think you were answered. That question was answered should be to your satisfaction.
Can you answer it now?
I'm not going to repeat. I'll just tell you exactly that you can go and you see it in writing. It's all in print. You know, the Bible says, do not go beyond the things that are written. We don't go beyond the things that are written.
And that was that.
Let's move this way, please.
No doubt, no second thoughts. Just a simple belief that Jehovah will sort it out. A belief for which others, younger and more vulnerable, may continue to pay a price.
Howie and I are about 2 blocks from the main watchtower building when he spots someone. A member of the governing body. That's Tony Morris. Go get him. Now, I've sat in Morris's lobby and called him at home, trying to ask him why his organization covers up child abuse. This guy's word is law to 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses, so it's weird to see him just walking down the street. He sees me coming and crosses the street to get away. When I catch up to him, I'm out of breath. Mr. Morris? Excuse me, Mr. Morris? I know you don't. My name's Trey Bundy. I'm a reporter at the Center for Investigative Reporting. I've been writing stories and producing radio stories this year about Jehovah's Witnesses and child sex abuse. Do you have a second to talk to me?
Not really. I'm going out to preach the good news of the kingdom.
Okay. I saw that you, he had just released a video where he blames child abuse on homosexuals. I asked him about that. Can you talk to me about that at all?
It's all in the broadcast.
And with that, someone opens a door to a building a few feet away, and Morris rushes inside. After calling and emailing the governing body for months with no response, after reading through stacks of their documents, after flying from California to New York, I finally find one of these guys, and seconds later, he's gone.
You know, you really can't blame the media for ambush interviews. The organization thinks that they can hide in their ivory tower away from anybody who dares to question them about their destructive policies, while their rank and file members are made to suffer from these same policies. And they think that they can avoid all kinds of questions whatsoever. But as I brought out, the organization is all about control. But they can't control the media. So whenever anything negative is said about them, they blame it all on Satan. Of course, when anything good is said, as I brought out earlier, they attribute it to Jehovah and all the good things that he has supposedly blessed them with. As shown from the video, though, they will cozy up to Satan's media whenever they are given the opportunity.
You want the reporter to like you, if at all possible.
More recently, the organization also tries to claim that anything negative said about them is just fake news. And it's a real shame because there are some people within their organization who are believing that this is the case. The media and the internet are playing a huge role in shining a light on the dark, destructive policies of JW.org. So whether the organization chooses to answer any of these questions, which of course we see they aren't, they're just putting out these statements how they hate, abhor, I think is the word they use, child abuse. Whether they choose to answer the questions or whether they choose to continue hiding in their ivory tower, the fact is that honest-hearted people are seeing for themselves what really is going on. So this concludes today's program. I want to thank you all for watching, and if you like it, then like it, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.